The final unit explained the possibilities of creating three-dimensional structures and fabrics. By the end of this unit, students will be able to outline the process of partial knitting, outline the process of integral knitting, demonstrate ways to use these techniques to create customized variations. What if you can have a dart while knitting the fabric itself? What about a pocket with a flap is also added into the fabric while knitting? All these are reality if you are working in flat knits. Let's look at the possibility of having a diagonal stripe in a swatch as shown in the diagram. To achieve this, we need to split the diagram into 5 parts. We can start knitting the part 1 in the usual way. Once we move on to the second part, we have to do partial knitting. When a course is knitted repeatedly on few needles instead of the entire width of the fabric by not releasing old loops is known as partial knitting. To knit part 2, we have to constantly reduce the knitting width from right to left without releasing the loops on the right side. When the part 3 is knitted, the first course of the stripe will get attached to the existing fabric tip, forming a diagonal stripe. Now, compensate the partial knitting done in the second segment by knitting fourth segment partially from the opposite side as shown in the diagram. Complete the swatch with the fifth segment. In this swatch, the partial knitting done on segment 2 has not been compensated later. Instead, repeat segment 2 and 3 to produce radiating stripe effect. Now we have seen different possibilities in knitting, including making different structures, using color, making garments. Now in a very advanced level, knitting can create a 3D surface. So usually we add darts, we add pleats, we create all these things to cover a 3D body of ours with a 2D plane, that is the fabric. So the moment you try to cover a 2D plane into a 3D, you will have excess fabric in certain area, there will not be enough fabric in certain area. All this can be manipulated using application of darts and pleats and such kind of things. What if we can knit a 3D surface with whatever shape you want? Now the first part of that is about partial knitting. Now partial knitting is, let's say in a simplified term, let's say we have a swatch. Now we want to knit a diagonal line here. It's a stripe basically, but we want to get it attached this way. What are the different methods available based on whatever you have learned so far? One method could be jacquard, where this particular color would be starting from here and ending here, but shows only in these few areas, like that. So the entire area can be converted into a jacquard and knitting happens this way. Now second method could be, this can be intarsia. So in intarsia technique, you will not have any back here, it will be plain single jersey, but this would be knitted this way. Now what if I want this knitting direction also in this way, here and this here? Now that looks like challenging, because usually we knit only in horizontal direction with flat knits, and that is also completely perpendicular to the side of the seam. Now here this particular patch of color is attached or knitted with 45-degree angle. It's a diagonal piece. So either we can knit it this way using jacquard or intarsia, or second method is called a partial knitting. Through partial knitting you can actually knit certain area in one direction, certain area in a completely different direction. Now this will also help us to create three dimensionality in a later stage. Now let us understand how to knit this particular piece. So we have to clearly divide this into few pieces. Now the first piece would be this, which is a normal rectangle. So we will have a normal rectangle knitted in the very normal way. So I'll name it as the first block, both side, and now we have this triangle happening. I'll put it as 2. So how am I going to knit this triangle? Now as you know, we can select needles from a given space and we can select whatever number of needles we want from that particular space. So let's say we had 1 to 100 needles being knitted. So after this area, when I come back with knitting, I'll not knit all the 100 needles, I'll knit only 99 needles. I'll go back, I'll come back and I might knit only 97 needles. So that way I'll keep reducing the knitting I am doing, the needles I am doing, and I'll be adding knitted loops in this diagonal in a triangle shape. The difference between this and a shaping which we have seen or fashioning is, in fashioning we were emptying all the needles while we were doing a shaping like this. Here we are holding all the loops intact while we perform this. Now from this point here we are going to knit a straight piece in a different color. So whatever color we are using, third segment. Now please remember, this particular needle is holding a loop here, and after this particular course, this particular needle did not knit till now. Now it is going to knit here. So the loop here would be taken through this, meaning this entire piece shift and get attached this way. Yeah. So once that happens, the knitting happens completely. After that we are going to knit fourth segment, which is nothing but a compensatory factor for this area. So whatever has been avoided here, that we are going to knit here. So again we will be starting with very 1 or 2 needles, we will keep on increasing more and more needles, we will keep increasing till we reach this point, and now this has become a rectangle again. On top of it the fifth segment would be knitted. Now this is the way we do partial knitting. So what we mean to say partial knitting is, we are not knitting fully, we are knitting only partially. So the challenge of partial knitting is, to perform knitting, you all know, we need to hold the loops down. So to hold the loops down, we need to apply force. So when we apply force while knitting, the needles will go up and the loops will be retained in the same space wherever they were, and that's the reason this needle or the loops clear the needle latch and goes up and catch the new thread. But here in this case, when we are holding this loop here, we are adding more courses here. The fabric is pulled uniformly towards the bottom using the machine, whatever technology we have. So when we do that, all the forces would be applied to this area because we have excess knitting happening here. There is a chance that fabric will come down, but then here it will not come down. So beyond a point, the needles here will give away, it will break, and the entire fabric will come out. So to avoid that, while we do partial knitting, when we do this area or the segment we have explained here, we will switch off the tension for this fabric. So the fabric will not be pulled down at that point of time. Now to perform knitting without that tension, only few machines can achieve such kind of thing with added or additional features established into it. But there are machines available with additional features. I am not getting into the details because it will be highly technical if I explain that, but please understand, there is a way we can switch off the tension and there is a way we can knit partially. So when we combine these two, we can produce a 3D fabric. Another question you will be having in your mind is, when after knitting this is fine, this part is fine, I am going to knit this way. When I am knitting this, how is it getting attached diagonally? Now what happens is, after knitting the basic block, we are adding more knitting here. When we keep on adding knitting here, this area comes down, this area remains same. So that means this entire fabric start tilting. So after knitting this much, entire thing will get shifted like this, So one will get shifted like this, two would be ready on needle bed because knitting can happen only in a horizontal plane. On top of it, we are adding the new color. Later on, we are going to add knitting more. So this side will start coming more and make this area straight again. So this will start knitting. Now when this happens, this entire thing shift back to the same position. On top of it, we can do a normal knitting. This is how these panels get attached and create a partial knitting. Now partial knitting, using partial knitting, you can achieve a lot of design possibilities, including 3D knitting, bubbles. Then another technique which is available in to create advanced level garments are slits. Again, slits is a variation of partial knitting only. What if we can have a buttonhole created while knitting? Now usually all the buttonholes, like it has been created after finishing, after making the fabric. The fabric will not have any hole. We have to cut the hole with a knife which is attached to the buttonholing machine, and we have to sides we need to stitch and make sure like it will not come out. So, but then in knitting it is possible to create a hole. So what we are going to do is, we'll knit up to this much, we will knit in a normal way, then we will knit this side alone separately with a feeder, this side alone separately with a feeder. There will not be any gap here because there will be let's say 1 to 100 needles, 1 to 50 needles I will use this particular area to knit, 51 to 100 I will use this area. So there will not be any gap as such here, but then this side and this side will not have any connection. On top of it, I can knit it again, another panel. So this will not remain as a straight slit like this because of the nature of the fabric. It will open up and it'll create a hole like this. Now this is a vertical slit. Now there is a slightly different method to produce a horizontal slit. To produce a horizontal slit, what we need to do is we need to do bind off. I have already explained bind off in the previous session with when the fully fashioned garments are explained in J curve sleeve armhole shape. So we can close these down completely, the loops here, and here loops would be engaged for further knitting. Now that means here it is completely closed. Now again we start knitting on empty needles here and we build it. So what happens between this course and this course, there is no connection here, which will transform into a horizontal slit. Again, as I explained earlier, this will not remain as a very fine straight line. It will open up and create a slit like this. So we know how to make a vertical slit, we know how to make a horizontal slit. We also know how to convert any of these things into a diagonal manner using partial knit. So combining these things, you can create slit in any direction. One of the common application of slit is a buttonhole, another one is a pocket. Well, yes, this can be used as a pocket, and a pocket can also be created in a slightly different way using partial knitting again. A placket also can be created if you want using the same method, which is a slightly different method called integral knitting. Before doing a placket, I'll explain how to do a pocket. Very simple pocket. A simple pocket would be knitted like this. We have a normal knitting has happened. After that, we are going to hold these areas, we will not knit those, we will select only the center area needles and we will keep on knitting it. After that, again we are going to start knitting on this. So here there are loops holding to the needle, this side also. Now these loops are getting interlooped through this one, meaning these two will get completely closed. So this will come down, this will come down, closing this completely, and what you are going to have is this will go down. So here if I show you from the side, there will be a bag kind of thing here, and a pocket was created. What all you need to do is like just close down these side and it can be used as a pocket. Now what if we need a placket, in this swatch the knitting goes like this, and you're supposed to get the horizontal lines or any of this 90-degree angle only. But in this case you can see instead of 90-degree it has been shifted. So this is a good example for partial knitting. So normal knitting course will happen this way, and it has been knitted excess here, less here, so that when we knit this 3D structure, it get attached instead of a horizontal line, it will get attached in a diagonal line. And you can see the contrast between this line and this line in terms of angle. That is because again we have done excess knitting over this side and less knitting over this side, so that this got attached in a different angle. This particular one and this particular one done, knitting is done exactly the same angle, that is a horizontal line, but since the knitting is done in a partial manner before knitting this particular one, this particular the piece get attached in diagonal fashion. To create a bubble shape with a single jersey, the knit plan would be as shown in the diagram. Let's divide the diagram into 3 segments and do partial knitting as shown. The first and third segment will join together wherever the second segment is not knitting, creating a bubble. This technique can be used to create fullness in fabric as is done with the darts in woven garments. To create a three-dimensional structure, we can use the bubble design with a back knit. To achieve this, start with segment 1 and just before starting off segment 2, give a front and back knit to the entire width of the segment 2. Now, back bed would be holding all the loops and continue knitting segment 2. Once the segment is over, transfer the holding loops from back bed to the front bed and continue knitting the segment 3. In this way, you can achieve a very narrow protruding bubble. We can create vertical, diagonal and horizontal slits in fabrics with partial knitting. Vertical slits. To produce vertical slits, we have to knit the segment on the right side of the slit and the left side of the slit with different feeders. It is very much like creating intarsia without joining two panels with the text stitch. Horizontal slit. To create horizontal slit, you can bind off the required knit area and then start knitting again on the same set of needles. A combination of partial knitting and horizontal slit technique can be used to produce a diagonal slit. This method can also be used to create different type of buttonholes. Integral knitting is the method by which we can integrate different parts of the garments together during knitting. We are knitting part A, part B separately and trying to integrate together and continue knitting part C. Please note, part A and part C are knitted in the back bed and part B is knitted in the front bed. Let's begin with part A. Complete the knitting of part A in the back bed. Now start knitting part B on the empty front bed needles. Knit part B completely. Transfer all the loops to the back bed. Continue knitting on back bed to finish part C. We have seen partial knitting and we have seen how we can create pocket, how we can create slits. Right, we have created pocket. Now what if I need to make a flap on top of it? So I basically want a fabric with another fabric attached into it. So when we say a flap, it's nothing but a new fabric getting attached into the existing fabric. That's how flaps are created. So this is fabric number 1, this fabric number 2. This method is called integral knitting. This is also possible in flat knitting. You don't need to take the different knitted fabrics out and then attach it later. While knitting itself, this is possible to make. Now, how do we start? We have to start with the body fabric. So, again I am going to divide this into part 1, part 2 is the new fabric of course and 3 is the top one. So, I am going to first knit part 1. This unit we will discuss about the unique ability of a flat knitting machine to knit ready to assemble panels. We will also examine the advantages of such a technique. By the end of this unit, students will be able to describe what is fashioning, list the advantages of using these techniques. In case of a woven fabric or a circular knitted fabric, the process of converting the fabric into garments are as follows. Spread the fabric on the cutting table, draw the technical patterns on the garment, draw the technical patterns on the garment, Draw the technical patterns on the garment. Draw the technical Draw the technical sorry. 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 Sorry. Draw the technical 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 sorry. Sorry. Draw the technical 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 sorry. Sorry. Draw the technical 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 sorry. Let's look at another example. This time all the parts are to be knitted with the front bed only. Let us start the knitting with part A in the front bed, complete the knitting of part A, then transfer to the back bed. Now start part B on the empty front bed. Complete knitting and then transfer back the part A from back bed to front bed. Start knitting the part C to complete the swatch. Let us look at a variation of the first example. After knitting part A and B, do not transfer all the part B to the back bed. Transfer few loops to the back and continue knitting on back bed. Now transfer few more loops. This way we can attach part B into the back bed with desired shapes. You have seen in this previous example the part B curls. Single jersey will curl in its edges. What if you need a pocket flap to be created the same way without curl at the edges? To do this, start knitting part A as usual. Now transfer all the loops to the back bed. In the next step, move alternate loops of back bed to the adjacent needles. This way, alternate needles in the back bed would be empty. Now start knitting part B with 1 by 1 rib structure, knitting on empty needles of the back bed needle. Complete the part B and then transfer all the loops either to the back bed or to the front bed and continue knitting part C. This way, it is possible to create different garment parts such as collar, placket, pocket, flaps, etc. to be integrated to the body panels. Let's look at some more examples of partial and integral knitting. You have come to the end of this unit and course. To summarize, in this unit, you have explored the possibilities of creating three-dimensional structures and even three-dimensional fabrics with contouring to fit the human body using partial knitting and integral knitting techniques. Thank you.